So, Cathal, thanks very much for coming on. How have you been keeping the last 2 or 3 months with this lockdown happening?
Thanks for having me on, Dara. Look, I think it's gone quite okay for me. I suppose it's been a bit of a change in terms of I'm working at home now, probably 12 weeks. With our job, we'd be out and about doing. So we'd be in the middle of cool camps now with schools, coach, and that type of stuff. So it has been a good shift in that way, but or a shift, I suppose. But overall, I've been lucky enough. None of my family have been sick with it or anything like that. So overall, I found it quite okay, you know.
Yeah, we seem to nearly be getting back to now to a bit of normality. The GA announcing that roadmap. I suppose something you're welcoming, anyways.
Yeah, definitely. It was great news. I suppose a lot of people, there was doom and gloom there for a long time that there'd be no GA for the year. So it's finally great to hear yesterday that the government's restrictions overall are being progressed on, and then that the GA are able to bring out a roadmap. I suppose there's a lot of restrictions even within that, but it's great that we have to go back training in smaller groups, and then that there's games maybe in August time and inter-county later on in the year. So I think it'll lift people's moods a lot, which is I think for a lot of people it's probably badly needed.
Yeah, do you like the way that they've gone with the club first rather than the inter-county?
Yeah, I do. I suppose I've played quite a while for Roscommon, so it's not often that you get to spend a dedicated period of time with the club, and it's anytime you do get back, it's great to be able to train with the I suppose the lads you grow up and stuff. So it's brilliant. I think we're going to have dedicated 11, 12 weeks there, which is great, and I think that's good for everyone because it's community based at the end of the day, and there's time at the end of the year to play the intercounty then when if that allows. So I think everyone will get their fair share of the pie.
Yeah, so we'll go straight into Roscommon. You came into the panel in 2006. How did that come about, and what was it like going into the senior panel?
Yeah, in 2006 I was just out of minor. I'd actually started training with the under 21s. And we used to train side by side with seniors there up in Kilbride, near your own place there. And one night we were training, and John Mahan he needed a player to make up a training game, and he came over, and I brought over and done all right that night. And the same happened the second or third night. It used to be every Tuesday or Thursday that time. And then I got asked to join the panel fully, maybe after I think 10 days. I think it was maybe 3 trainings, and he asked me to join the panel fully then. And I suppose it was into the year. I made my debut down in Limerick in the sports showgrounds down there. And I hadn't been on the panel an awful length at that time. I was only on it a couple of weeks, so it kind of all happened fairly quickly. And look, it was all good. Like, you were in around the senior panel, and it was good crack, and kind of took it in my stride, you know.
Yeah, was there a bit of a buzz maybe that year or two then? Because the minors obviously won the All Ireland in 2006, so you'd have a few of them coming in as well.
Yeah, that was probably the first year we played in. We also had the league, and then we played the championship. We went to New York actually that year, which was brilliant. Obviously, I was only 18, and I was first year on the panel on a trip to New York, and it was the economy was going really well at the time, and there was half of Roscommon were over there, you know. So it was a brilliant trip to get. We came back then and played. I think it was Sligo, and then we lost to Meath after that. Sorry, it was Galway we played. We lost to them, and then we lost to Meath. I suppose the minor thing took over after that. I'd have known a lot of them lads because I was only a year older than them. A good few of them would have been on the panel, with the minor panel with us the previous year. I was in college with some of them as well, which was great. The following year, I'd obviously played under 21 with a number of them over the years as well. So it was an exciting time because you knew there was good players coming through.
Mayo in Castlebar in 2009, you by a fair few points, and then obviously you won the 2010 Connacht final. Going to that Connacht final, Sligo had obviously taken out Mayo and Galway, and you probably had the easy run with maybe Leitrim. What was the mindset going into that? Did you think that you had a fair chance because maybe Sligo aren't the powerhouse like Mayo or Galway?
Yeah, definitely. Like I suppose anytime you go out against would say Roscommon, Sligo, Leitrim, that always think they have a chance against each other. Although Sligo were going well at the time, they were up Division Two and they were competing quite well there. They were going strong and they had a good team at the time. It wasn't by chance that they just took out Galway and Mayo either. So we had a great league campaign. We got relegated that year, but we had an awful lot of work put in. We had trained very hard throughout the league, so we knew we had a lot of work done, and I suppose there was an awful lot of. I think within that group there was an awful lot of, I suppose, strong characters, and like Fergal had set out a structure and a plan that we were to work towards, and the whole team just stuck to that. And looking on that day, I think we just, to a man, everyone across the field just done their job and probably excelled in a lot of areas. And we, like Sligo, nearly came back at the finish. It was very, very tight. But look, it was one of them days where everything just came together and everyone really put in a performance.
Yeah, do you like the underdogs tag? Because probably Sligo, they hadn't been used to that going into any kind of final they played before, and it just probably suited you that day.
Yeah, there was probably huge pressure on Sligo given they'd beaten Galway and Mayo before that. Like, I suppose the easy thing for people to say is that they took us for granted. But I think on the day we did play really well, and we probably took out a lot of their main players in terms of man marking jobs and so on. So it was a brilliant win. It was a brilliant atmosphere after it, or during it and after it, and the week after, I suppose.
Yeah, and then you play Cork in the quarterfinal 2 weeks later. Like, is it just the bonus territory attitude maybe that you went into that kind of nothing to lose and you weren't thinking it was semi-final? Did you get that one?
Yeah, we played Cork. But the Cork game, we actually put in a quite a good performance, I suppose, for maybe 50, 55 minutes. We went a point up, but at the time Cork were a phenomenal team. Like, I remember, like, I was playing that wing forward role at the time, and I ended up coming off. I think it was after like 50 minutes, 55 minutes. Around the time we went up, I remember, I think Gerard Heenan got a point to put us up. But I can't remember exactly who they brought. Donnick O'Connor on, that Alan O'Connor came on. There was another one that they definitely brought 3 or 4 All-Stars off the bench, and they just blew us out of the water in the last 10, 15 minutes. But they went on and won the All-Ireland. Like, they had a phenomenal team at the time. And I think we didn't do too bad, given, like, following year we played Division 4, like, and we're playing the All-Ireland champions, like, so you kind of have to put it into perspective. But I suppose we probably gave as much as we had on that day, that what was in the team,
Yeah, and then you get back to the kind of final net the following year against Mayo in the Hyde. You might look back on that one with a bit of disappointment that you didn't win that one, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose that was probably a juncture for the team that if we had won that and won back to back, we probably would have progressed on more in our development. Things kind of broke up a bit after that. We didn't just have as much transition, and it was very tight. I think Rob Henley caught a ball just over the crossbar from Donny Shine. It was a wet day, and they went up, and Padder Gardner, I think it was, got a point that just went over the bar. And Mayo took off. Then I think they led Cork in All-Ireland quarter final, and they kind of broke the ceiling for them for the following 4 or 5 years. So look, at Fergal obviously stepped away after that, and there was a bit of chopping and changing for a year or two until John Evans came in. So I think that was definitely a juncture where the team maybe stalled progress, I suppose.
Yeah, then John Evans, as you said, came in 2013. Was it more the success under him was in the league rather than the championship?
Yeah, but I suppose, like, if John took us over when we were probably mid to bottom Division 3, really, like, we were expected to compete in the Connacht Championship with Galways and Mayos, who were playing Division 1 and Division 2, like, which realistically we weren't going to be beating them because they were better opposition than us at the time. John would have put a focus on getting up through the leagues, and I would feel that John probably doesn't get the credit he deserves, really. You know, like we went from being a bottom of Division 3 team to Division 2, straight to Division 1 under his tender. Like we would have put in, I suppose a lot of people will remember the Sligo one, because we were expected in 2015 to win that, even though we're down a lot of players. But in 14 we would have pushed a really good Mayo team really close in the hide to a point. So like I would have felt that 3-year period was we made savage progress as a group. And I suppose I don't think John probably gets the credit that he deserves for that. Like, it's probably the foundation of a lot of what has happened over the last 4 to 5 years, really, you know.
How important is it to be playing Division 1 and 2 if you want to be winning Connacht titles, that you get that experience against the bigger teams?
Yeah, like realistically, you're not going, like, if probably unless you're playing Division 1, you're probably not going to be winning Connacht titles. That's the reality of it. I know we back to 2010 we probably booked that trend a small bit. But like, you're competing against Mayo, who have been a top 2 team realistically over the last 6-7 years. Probably only second to Dublin, and Galway have come strong, but they've always been a Division 2 team. So unless you're challenging yourself against them teams, you're not going to be found out until it's too late when you're in the championship. Like, I suppose that's what I found, especially with Division 1. Like, sometimes they're nearly as hard, if not harder, than championship games. And the more you can expose yourself to them throughout the year, you're going to, I suppose, review them games and learn from them and change up your training, up your match intensity, the way you're setting up and so on. But if you're coasting through games in the lower divisions, you're not going to be found out till it comes to championship, and then you have to wait another 12 months before you see whether you've done it right or not. Whereas 7 games in the league, you'll find an awful lot. If you don't perform in them 7 league games in Division 1, you're going to be badly exposed. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, and obviously that 2015 championship, John Evans last year against Sligo Fermanagh. So Sligo probably did to you what you did to them in 2010, that you were probably the raging hot favourites, just being promoted to Division 1, and it must be a big disappointment that year with the championship that you didn't kick on.
Yeah, it definitely was. I know we were carrying a lot of injuries into the game and so on, but we didn't perform on the day, and that was it. And in fairness to Sligo, they came with a really good performance. And like, they were still quite a decent team at that time as well, you know. So they were, but it definitely was a disappointment. I think that would have put us into a Connacht final. We went on then and played Cavan, and we bet Cavan up in Breffni, and then we went up to Fermanagh, and we played against Fermanagh. We probably played 60 minutes of as good a football as we ever played under John Evans, and then the last 10 minutes, whatever happened, we just absolutely buckled. And I've often thought about that game. Like, I think that would have put us on to before an All-Ireland quarter-final.
I think it was round 4. It would have got round 4, yeah.
It was definitely a game that we should have won, and John probably took a lot of flack for that. But I don't know, it was just one of them games. The last 10 minutes just went to pot, which was disappointing as well. It was probably another opportunity lost that we could have maybe crept into an All-Ireland quarter-final and so on. That was before the Super 8s had come in, so that was disappointing, I suppose.
Yeah, 2016 then, Fergal O'Donnell and Kevin McStay came in at the joint managers. Obviously, we're playing Division 1 for the first time. How much emphasis was put on the league that nearly was a stay up at all costs mentality, maybe?
Yeah, we there was quite a bit of training done early on. It was probably overstated, I think, at the time. It was probably overstated because the way our championship went, but Roscommon had got there, so I think that it was a very important period for the team. Like, the team learned a lot throughout that has stood them ever since, because as I said earlier, like, it's the place you want to be if you want to be winning Connacht championships and so on. Even if you're losing games in it, you're learning all the time in it. But I suppose it was the first time I was, or any of the lads, were exposed to playing Division 1 football, and it's like a championship game every day you go out, because you've like the exposure even beforehand. There's way more talk about it. They're on telly. The crowds are bigger. Everything about it is just, it's where you want to be playing. Like, and look, we had some brilliant days. We were on the road a lot that year actually, but we had some wonderful performances, like, and some brilliant wins. We won up in Donegal. They were going well at the time. Dublin down in Carrick and Shannon. We lost. I think we lost that game, but we were within a point or two of Dublin. So you were playing all the big guns, which we hadn't ever done, like in my time, and I'd been around for 10 years at that stage, you know. So it was just a savage buzz around, and I suppose with Fergal and Kevin over the team, there was even more media exposure because of that as well.
Yeah, did you nearly maybe get caught up in the hype that I guess, as you said, you went down to Kerry, Cork, Donegal, you bet them, and then you were nearly brought back down to earth by the likes of Mayo and Kerry towards the end of the league?
Yeah, definitely. I suppose we must have at the time just had more done than teams, and we hit it early. And yeah, towards the end of the league, we probably started to stall a small bit, I suppose. But the other teams were getting better because they were winding up towards championship as well. So, like, we had gone 3-2 to Division 1 at the time, so we're probably punching above our weight, really. So I suppose things were probably leveling out at the end of the league, but we had enough done to keep ourselves in that league, and that was good exposure for the development of the teams for the following year as well. And I suppose the last one, probably difficult. We went up to an All-Ireland semi-final up in Croke Park, and Kerry, I suppose, really showed us we were behind the trend at the time. But it was a good achievement at the time to be in an All-Ireland semi-final of a Division 1 league. Given 2 years previous, we were middle of Division 3, like, so there was a lot of progress made, you know.
Was the whole New York experience then, going over to just a couple of weeks after that, was that probably one of the worst experiences in some ways, that you were nearly caught out over there?
Yeah, it was. I suppose, like, it was a very funny game. Like the first half, we were all over them. I remember Vinny Cadden was the goalkeeper in some Sligo. I know him, and he pulled off 5 or 6 of the most unbelievable saves in the first half I've ever seen. He ended up getting man of the match that day, I think. He, like, we should have been completely out of sight, like, and then the second half was kind of getting a bit tighter, and they got a couple of scores. They had a guy from Westmeath, I can't think of his name now, just off the top of my head, but he was blonde hair fella. Oh, Luke Loughlin, like, phenomenal player. Like, they had quite a number of good players as well, to be fair. I remember Luke Loughlin that day was just phenomenal, like, and they brought it back within a couple of points, but look, thankfully we got out of it, and it was a funny experience. I wouldn't say it was probably one of the worst experiences in my career. I've had worse days than that, because we obviously came out with the win, but it probably drew a lot more attention than brought a bit of negativity around the place as well, like, you know.
Yeah, could you even feel that negativity building up, that once he had lost to even Galway in the replay of the Connacht final, going into that Clare game, that you were kind of going nowhere, and the season was ending?
Yeah, it was. We hadn't been playing well, I suppose. Kind of coming towards the end of the league, and we, I suppose, didn't play that well against New York. Like, things could have been different if we'd kind of got them a couple of goals in the first half against New York, but there was kind of a building of negativity around the team, I think, at the time. And then we played Sligo, who we were expected to beat. And they were up well at half time, and there was a massive win. We ended up coming back. We weren't playing well, like. Galway game, then the first day, I know it was the bad day over in Salt Hill. That was an impossibility to play that day. And it was okay. It was very tough to play. Again, we hadn't played that well, and we went out the following week in Castlebar, and we just got annihilated. So that was a real, I suppose, kick in the stomach to us. And we'd play Clare a week later, and we were nowhere to be seen, like, and Clare just ran us off the field again over in Salt Hill, which was a real, I suppose, negative ending to a year that probably wasn't that bad overall, considering we've been in an All-Ireland or a league semi-final and Connacht final replay. but the last 2 games were just very disappointing.
Yeah, you took a year out then in 2017. Was it always the plan to take a year at some point away from the panel?
Like I'd often considered it in terms of, like, some of the years previous. I thought about going to maybe America for summers and stuff like that. There was obviously the breakup in the management at that time, and there was a lot of negativity and bullshit going on in the background. We were getting married, having our first child here as well, and I was doing a PhD, so I just sidestepped it, and I just said I'd take the year out of it, really. It's something that I suppose Roscommon went on and won the Connacht title, but it's probably not something that I regret doing, because I played for a long time at that stage, and even with the 2016, the way it finished, you get a bit fed up with it at different stages, and I don't think I'd be still playing now if I hadn't taken that year out. I think it really refreshed me, and we spoke at the start there about getting back with the club and stuff. I really enjoyed the year back with the club. We won the league and we got to a county semi-final. Maybe we probably should have pushed on a bit further, but I would have really enjoyed that time, because I'd never, at senior level, since I started playing, it was the only time I ever trained for a full season with the club, which was which I loved, So I found it a good year for myself personally,
Yeah, was it hard at all seeing them beat Galway in Salt Hill that day?
Not particularly. I suppose our son was born the day after, so we were busy enough at the time, to be honest. But no, look, I was delighted for the lads. I texted them all at the time. I obviously wasn't able to go up and be with them or anything like that. But look, at it overall, it was what it was. But it was good for Roscommon. Anytime Roscommon win a Connacht title, it's always great,
Yeah, you came back in 2018, then you won Division 2 when you lost the Connacht final, but you managed to get into that last day by beating Armagh in that great game in Portlaoise. What was the whole of Super 8's experience like? Once you lose one, does it have a knock-on effect for then the second and third game?
Yeah, look, I suppose 2018 was probably a funny year. I was going back in. We won Division 2 quite handy. We got out of it. We lost the Connacht final. I suppose that it was probably definitely one that got away, that we definitely could have won that one. And that, again, no more than 2011, it was probably one that got away, and we could have had back-to-back Connacht titles at the time. We went and we bet Armagh then the following week or maybe 2 weeks after, up in Portlaoise. That was actually a cracking game. It was a lovely day. Both teams just went to open out playing. It was really high scoring. And we got to the Super 8s, and I suppose you mentioned earlier about bad experiences. That first game against Tyrone was probably a low a time in my career as I've ever seen. It was a very, very bad day. I think we lost by 22 points. And look at the reality, we were gone at that stage. I think Donegal came down into the Hyde and bet us by 12 points, maybe 11, 12 points. And then we had to go up and play Dublin, and like their second team bet us off the field. So it was, I tell you, it was as hard a 3 or 4 weeks as I've ever had in football. In fairness to all the lads, they stuck to it. They went to train on the whole lot, but it was it was tough going. Now I tell you, it was a bad couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's nearly a bit of a reality check that top 3, 4, 5 teams. It's such a hard gap nearly to bridge.
Yeah, it definitely was. I suppose it was probably it was embarrassing as much as anything. Like, look, I suppose we had got an easier run to it. We had bet Leitrim, who probably weren't going great at the time. They were in Division 4, and we bet Armagh, but Armagh were Division 3 at the time, and that's what we won to get to a Super 8. So maybe we didn't deserve to be in a Super 8, to be quite honest about it, but it was a serious reality call for myself and a lot of the team. And maybe the lack of preparation that we had maybe put into that, we weren't at the level of a Super 8s. Then that's just being honest, you know.
Yeah, obviously Anthony Cunningham then came in last year. What's he brought to the team? Maybe that's a bit more physicality, defensive structure, maybe.
Yeah, look, I think Anthony, just his preparation of the team is just it's top quality. Like, you can know he's worked at the highest level with teams, obviously in hurling and football, and in at county level and at club level, and you can just know that in terms of the preparation of the team. He obviously got probably brought in some more physical lads that weren't played the 2 or 3 years previous. He, like, I suppose people say he plays defensive, but I think he probably just has the team working harder more than defensive. Like, everyone is doing the work, whereas I think maybe the couple of years previous we were good going one way in terms of attacking. So when the likes of Armagh games we mentioned there, we were playing open out football, we were fine. But when we came up against a team like Tyrone that put us on the back foot, we were wide open and we're conceding 5-6 goals in games and so on. And you're never going to outshoot. You'll outshoot a team that you're better than, but you won't outshoot a team that are better than you if you're trying to come up against them. And I think some of the performances last year probably would have shown that, particularly Tyrone in the High. That was a year on. Probably a game we could have won. We lost it by 4 points with a couple of goal chances in the first half. I missed a goal chance. Niall Morgan saved it, and Enda Smith had one as well. Like, if they had gone in, you don't know what would have happened, because when Tyrone get ahead of you, that's when they're good. But if you can get ahead of them, it can be a different game, you know.
Yeah, although you got relegated from Division 1 that year, did you actually use that as a positive, that you were competitive in 4 or 5 of the games at least, and bring that into the Mayo and Galway games in Connacht?
Yeah, definitely. As I said earlier, I suppose the more games you can play at Division 1, even if you're losing the games, you're learning all the time. And in fairness to Anthony, he's brilliant in terms of bringing the group together and making sure the group is learning, that each player is learning individually. That's probably one thing that he has brought to the group. They're constantly reviewing the way they're playing, trying to get better all the time. He's pushing the boundaries, but getting lads to kind of do it individually themselves rather than being made do it, if that makes sense. And like, we were very competitive in all them games. We were probably unlucky not to stay up. The games we lost were probably the games that we were expected to win. People would have been expecting us to go up to Cavan and beat Cavan, and we went up, and they hammered us above them in Breffni, whereas we done well against the likes of Tyrone. We probably should have won that game. We bet Monaghan. And who else we bet? The main thing is that we were really competitive in it, and that prepared us then for the Connacht Championship when we had to play 2 Division 1 teams as well. If we had been playing Division 2 or 3, we wouldn't have beaten the likes of Galway and Mayo, you know.
Yeah, even that Mayo one going to Castlebar was important, as yourself got the first goal, and also Harney got the second. Was it important just to be in that game going to the halftime break?
Yeah, definitely. Like, we had to start that game well and set our stall out, because we knew, like, I suppose the year before, no, 2017, Mayo had bet us by like 20 points or 22 points up in Croke Park. So you were 2 years on from that. It was the first time the teams had met since. So in that game, they had really squeezed up on us. So we knew they were going to try and do that as well. So we needed to get over that hump and make sure we're in the game at half time. And we did. Luckily enough, I got the goal early on. Then Ultan Harney followed it up afterwards. And I suppose we put the squeeze on them as such, and they had to react. But we never took a backward step, and it got tight, and we brought lads off the bench. I suppose we have a stronger panel now that we can do that. And look, you develop that panel as well when you're playing at Division 1. And look, we had the likes of Enda Smith, Donny Smith, Devani, your own teammate, coming off the bench. Who else came on? I know we had quite a strong.
Came on.
Yeah, Jeremy came on at half time. So like, they're 4 quality players to be bringing off the bench, and we just saw it out, just about. But it was a brilliant win. We hadn't won over there for 33 years. I hadn't actually realised that till watching the game. But it was a good one for the team to I suppose finally get over the Division 1 team, because that had been, I suppose, thrown at us for quite a while in terms of that maybe we're not able to punch at that level, So look, that was a great win.
Yeah, was it important then to come down from that Mayo win in Castlebar? Because nearly, as a Roscommon fan myself, everyone was nearly celebrating like we had won a Connacht title, but you still have to go to Salt Hill and get the cup.
Yeah, look at the celebrations after that was mad. Like it kind of took me aback a bit, to be honest, on the field afterwards. Like it was just, well, the Connacht final was quite big as well, but it was nearly bigger than that, which was, I suppose, strange at the time. Maybe when you're playing and preparing for a game, you're in a bit of a bubble. You don't. I've been told that this was written about in the papers and stuff like that, but I just hadn't formed it in my own head. So it's not kind of the reaction that you would have after normal championship games down through the years. So I suppose Anthony as well, after the game, he's been in them situations loads of times, so he was very good at resetting it and seeing where we went wrong in the game, because there was plenty of stuff we done wrong that day as well, more than we did in the kind of final as well. But we prepared well. Our preparation was really good, and that brought us into the kind of final then.
Yeah, it was a great second half performance in the Connacht final. But one thing was the pitch invasion, or the early pitch invasion. And at the end, I actually spoke to Anthony Cunningham about it. He nearly took the different route about that. He said it could have ended up even in a bad way, that the game could have been abandoned or anything. What were you thinking when you saw all these fans running on?
Yeah, well, I was off the pitch at that stage, actually. I was off maybe 10 minutes before that, and like I was probably on the sideline. I was on the sideline as well. I kind of didn't realise. I seen it afterwards, and there was so many in. I didn't realise there was as many people, or they encroached in on the field as much. I'd obviously only seen the few that was around me, because I was kind of near the middle of the pitch there. I was sitting beside the dock, and it like if people hadn't got off the pitch, the ref would have probably had to abandon the game. Like, I suppose you don't really think of that till afterwards, but it was crazy. It was a crazy thing. But I think Roscommon supporters are just that bit crazy when it comes to, you've seen the kind of final of 2017 and the game against Mayo. Like, when they get any bit of success, it's they really celebrate it,
Yeah, was it even satisfying for yourself as well that you got that second Connacht title after the one in 2010?
Yeah, look, it's great. Anytime you win a Connacht title, it's brilliant. And I suppose the way it was done as well, in terms of beating the two top teams, I suppose, or perceived top teams in Connacht. I suppose in 2010, people would say that we only bet Leitrim to get to a final, which is disrespectful to them, and they'll say, "Oh, Sligo took their eye off the ball," type thing, And then in 2017, they'll say, "You bet Leitrim again," and Galway played Division 2 or whatever. At the time, they'll throw that stuff at you. But it was good to look at any time you win a Connacht title. It's always good.
Yeah, what's the next step maybe for this team? Is it to qualify out of a Super 8 group into a semi-final, or is it just to keep getting to that last stage?
Yeah, look at every year I've ever played with Roscommon, the goal is always to win a Connacht title first and foremost. We need to get back playing Division 1 football. I suppose I don't know what the situation is with the league yet. Are they going to play out the last two games, or what's going to happen there? But I think we have to get back to Division 1 football, because if we want to be competitive long term, that's where we have to be. Win a Connacht title, and look, I think to get to the next level, we have to try and get through a Super 8s. We won a game there in the Super 8s at the end last year, but we have to start beating the likes of Tyrone, Donegal, the Dublins that have been beating us over the last few years. And I suppose we've closed the gap we showed last year with Tyrone, but we didn't get over the line. So there's still more improving to do, but that's not a simple task either. Like Kerry are very good, Dublin very good, Mayo are very strong, Galway are very strong. Like, it's Tyrone Donegal. Like there's the top 6 or 7 there are tough. Like we haven't mentioned Monaghan either, and so on. Cork are coming strong as well.
Yeah.
Like, so it's when you start going into that top 6 or 8,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough going, you know.
Yeah, we'll finish up with a few questions people sent in. So the first one will be, what's your favourite match that you played in?
Favorite match that I played in, I suppose the kind of final in 2010 would be definitely one, I suppose, that sticks in the mind. I suppose it was just one of them days when well, that I'd always personally remember. It was obviously my first Connacht title. It was kind of our first big day of winning anthem with Roscommon, even though I was there for 5 years. I suppose we weren't expected to do it. We were competing at the lower divisions. I would have felt that was a good achievement at the time, considering like we were going to Division 4. We're competing at Division 1 and 2 the last couple of years, so we're expected to be competing for Connacht titles. So, but I think I mentioned earlier, like as well, like that it was just one of them days when everyone just delivered, and it was just a really good feeling, and there was just a really good buzz around that group at the time. Even though there is now as well, like, to be fair, but so it was my first Connacht title, so it sticks in the memory.
If you could sign one player in Roscommon for Western Gales, who would it be?
All around the country, like?
No, in the county Roscommon.
Oh, in County Roscommon. Probably I'd probably go Conor Cox. We probably need an inside forward.
Yeah, he's a bit of a transfer sag at the moment where he's going to end up.
Yeah, no, he's look, he has been a great addition the last year. He's a good lad. He has worked. He has fitted right into the panel. He was a great addition to us last year from freeze and open play. He brought another dimension to our forward line. So yeah, no, I think any team would take him.
Yeah. Who would have been your toughest opponent on the field?
Toughest opponent on the field, probably I suppose the best. I suppose at 2 you probably have James McCarthy or Lee Keegan, I would think. I would have obviously with Roscommon and Mayo, I would have picked up Lee Keegan quite a number of times. Well, a few fair battles. I would have marked quite a bit of international rules trials and so on as well. I always really rated James McCarthy though. I think he's probably the best player on that Dublin team over the last period. I'd have been in college with him. He'd have been playing wing back. I'd have been playing wing forward. So we would have had in nearly every single training there for a couple of years, going toe to toe with him, and I just thought he was always a phenomenal player. He's a tough boy and a serious player. I think he's been unbelievable. I don't know how he hasn't got a Player of the Year yet. He's just phenomenal. Like.
Yeah, and with 2 left, what would be your favourite score?
My favourite score. Jeez, I don't know. I suppose the goal against Mayo this year, I suppose that's the first one that springs to mind. Can't really think anymore. Probably more of a provider that I have an outscored, you know. I can't think of any. I suppose the goal against Donegal in the league a couple of years back, that's maybe one that comes to mind. I can't think of too many more. I'm not prolific now. I don't be scoring 10 points every game.
Yeah, we'll finish it up then with the best player you've played with.
Best player I played with. The best player I played with. Probably James McCarthy. Overall, like I was in college with him in TCU and played international rules with him and that. Like I mentioned him earlier. Like I just think he's very good. Like he's the best over the last 10 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, so we'll leave it there. Cathal, thanks very much for coming on.
No bother. Fair play to you. Thanks for having me, and best of luck with the rest of the